Bryan Danielson wants to create his own faction in AEW. Plus, news and teased rebranding of Elias. News and Bray Wyatt's All Elite debut. Austin Theory become Vince's favorite revealed. Jim Ross returns. That's all in wrestling news December 5, 2021. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling news. Bryan Danielson has seen how factions have helped elevate a lot of younger wrestlers in AEW, and he wants to create his own faction in 2022. The former world champion recently had an interview with TV Insider. He discussed things such as WWE's reaction to AEW and more. When asked what's his goals for 2022, Danielson explained that he wants to put together a group with some younger talents. If I can get a group together, I'm thinking of a younger talent or two, and that develops into stories within that. Look at Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho. By Sammy joining the inner circle, he'd become a bigger star. He then stepped up to the plate and hit home runs. Said Bryan Danielson, that's how you build young stars. A guy that comes to mind for me is Daniel Garcia. The wrestling veteran also compared AEW to Game of Thrones. He mentioned how Game of Thrones was one of the most popular TV programs that made people come back to watch the show every week. Bryan explained that doing the same for AEW is one of his overarching goals. He wants to help the company to gain more audience and make it feel like a must-watch program every week. Bryan Danielson thought on younger talents. There's Darby Allin, who I think is just fantastic. I worry about him physically, about all the stuff he puts his body through. They're all kind of different. Dante, who's doing this incredible high flying. Darby, he does stuff that seems a little reckless, but I find him to be very psychologically sound and also this great character, Danielson added. Daniel Garcia is an excellent technical wrestler. You got MJF, who is evolving what you would have called the standard heel act. But he's evolving in a way that's modern, and it doesn't feel like he's just out there being a heel. It feels like he's an asshole, Bryan continued, praising Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Who do you want to see Bryan Danielson face in AEW? Let us know in the comments. WWE has no solid plans for Elias after killing off his old musical character a few months ago, according to latest reports. The officials had no end game in sight for the Drifter when they aired the vignettes teasing the change. The video packages were shot just to kill off the musician gimmick, according to WrestleVote's Twitter account. WWE did try to rebrand him with colorful trunks and beard. Vince McMahon and others thought Elias looked too similar to Randy Savage and they didn't like it. After that character was not approved, the former NXT star is back to square one as far as his rebranding goes, with no real plans for his future. Elias has not wrestled on WWE TV since his Symphony of Destruction match against Jackson Ryker. Ryker won this match on the July 19th edition of Raw, but he has since been released by WWE. WWE started airing vignettes teasing a character change for the former champion back in August. The last of these packages aired on August 23, but we haven't seen the Raw star since then. With no proper plan in motion, it's hard to say when or if we will see Elias back on WWE TV. We will have to see what role the creatives come up with for him. Boom! It's been more than 4 months now since WWE released Bray Wyatt from his contract. His 90-day non-compete clause expired on October 29, but the 34-year-old remains a free agent. Wyatt and close friend Jason Baker are working together on a movie that's being filmed in Tennessee, so it could be a while until the former makes a decision on his next wrestling chapter. In many ways, AEW feels like the best landing spot for Wyatt. Tony Khan has revealed interest in speaking with Wyatt, after all, and the AEW president and CEO has succeeded in recruiting plenty of top former WWE talents. During a recent episode of his Woo Nation podcast, Ric Flair outlined several reasons as to why he thinks AEW should sign the Bray Wyatt. I most definitely would hire Bray Wyatt. I'm a huge fan of his. The kid can work and talk, and he comes up with some incredible ideas. I know you aren't crazy about those gimmicks, but when you think that he put the time and effort, those were his thought process. Plus, he's legit, he's a tough kid, he's an amateur wrestler, played football at Troy. I'm just a big fan of his. I like his brother a lot too. You couldn't find a handsomer, more athletic guy. I think if I'm going to hire one more guy, I'd hire Bray Wyatt. The last guy the first would have fired if I were Vince would have been Bray Wyatt. So, there must have been something there's that I'm missing. It was initially reported that Wyatt was let go by WWE due to budget cuts. The company has released more than 80 talents so far in 2021. Subsequent reports stated that attitude issues and Wyatt's open criticism of WWE creative, which apparently caused Vince McMahon to dislike him, also played factors in his stunning release. Boom! Jim Ross is keeping his spirits high and aiming to return to the AEW commentary booth sooner rather than later after completing his cancer treatment. The wrestling veteran provided another update on his treatment in a new episode of Grilling Jr. He confirmed that the doctors have removed cancer from his back. "They got all the cancer out of my back. I don't have any more cancer in my back," said Ross. "Just two places, my shoulder and down lower." Speaking of his strange sign-off throughout the November 24th episode of Dynamite which got people talking about his health, Jim Ross claimed that it was his own idea. He then explained that he is going to be fine. "That was all me, I didn't have to ask Tony Khan for permission. He's supporting everything I do and that's just how I rolled it out because we hadn't said anything about it the entire show. I'm going to be fine. Everybody just has to understand I'm going to be fine because I like to battle and I like to be competitive. I'm a little hard-headed. Consequently, whatever it takes to get past this and solve this cancer issue is what we're going to do." Jim Ross revealed last month that he wouldn't have to undergo chemotherapy. He has begun a series of radiation treatments and the AEW star hopes to be back on TV before the end of this year. Boom! Austin Theory is getting excessive screen time on WWE television lately and fans are wondering why. Last Monday night on Raw, news surfaced explaining why Austin Theory was getting so much screen time. Vince McMahon appeared in Theory's backstage segments in Monday Night Raw. In the final hour of the show, one thing led to another and McMahon slapped Theory. Fans may argue that having Theory getting slapped by McMahon is not the best way to put him over. It is believed that the segments were put together with the intention to impress the boss. According to Dave Meltzer's report in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Theory won so much TV time because his event with Big E from 2 weeks ago was a hit, especially with teenagers. During his interview on After the Bell with Corey Graves, Austin Theory commented on the slap from McMahon. "It's like when you think wrestling, and you think wrestling god, it's Vince McMahon. I think when I'm sitting there and I'm talking with him, it doesn't get bigger than this, and already. I probably watched the video of getting slapped 100 times. I would just say, just don't upset Vince McMahon because he has some hands." The 24-year-old is one of the young wrestlers in the company. He is fronted as a visual for the organization in order to attract younger audience since the younger demographic is of utmost priority for the advertisers. What's your take on this story? Sound off in the comments. WWE continued the build toward Day 1 on January 1st in a big way last week. How did the viewership hold up with Brock Lesnar's return to the blue brand? According to Spoiler TV, the December 3rd episode of Friday Night SmackDown brought an overnight average of 1.966 million viewers. They also garnered a 5 in the 18 to 49 demographic.
Oh, let me up with a bright smile on now. Put me in the dark, so won't get lost now. To the moonlight, eyes you.